My father was very well known in Hungary before the war and at the beginning of the war, before 44. He was very, very, very well known. He loved what he was doing and he was working a lot. He had huge advertisements and he was so well known. It happened that at the same time, something like 8 or maybe more advertisements, huge, were around Budapest. And his art was really the only thing that helped him through all his life. When we left, we took with us very little. And he took to the train what was called an aniline painting. It was a very small box, and when you wet it a little bit, you could use it for quite a great space on the paper. So he took that with him and some brushes or so, very little things. And later in the camp, he did drawings and he painted them, and he said thank you with those paintings to people he wanted to thank for things. There was a doctor that healed him from when he was sick, and he made a painting for him. And he did those little cards. Those are the prints he printed in Switzerland later on, still during the war. And the colors here he did. It wasn't printed with colors. The color he did after it was printed. Yes. It's hand colored. There were two, one of the women and one the other. And this is the big one, with the women and children.
So this was, and this is?
This is both of them.
The two bunkers?
Yes. Okay.
That's great.
Well, he used to carry those, okay? He always went with somebody else to carry it. It was soup that had not much in it except water, more or less warm, and maybe with 1 or 2 carrots. And it was, the memory of the little food we had. This one, I must say, I love it especially, because this is really the hope for the boat that will bring us to Israel. And my father saw it sank, it sank to the bottom of the sea, and there is Bergen-Belsen. So here is the level of the sea, here's the boat that brings us to Israel. And it sank to the bottom of the sea. And in the bottom of the sea, there is Bergen-Belsen. And of course, the whole thing is behind those, how do you call them?
Barbed wire.
Barbed wires. Well, this is evident, I think. It's the towers. It's the David Tower and the Bergen-Belsen Tower. Well, the David Tower he had in his life memories from when he was, I don't know exactly how many years he was then in Palestine. 1925, or it wasn't yet Israel. That's about the idea of the two towers. And that was the bread. Well, the bread, we received some bread that he always said it was made of, when you cut wood, there is, how do you call this?
Yes. Sawdust.
Yes. It was made from, it was very bad. It was really, the bread was awful, but we loved it because we were very hungry. And here what he says, once a week we receive bread. And once a week, first day there is a piece of bread, and the second day much less, a little slice the third day, and then nothing anymore. We're just waiting for the next week. At most it lasts 3 days, and the fourth it's you're hungry. You see the stars from hunger. This is the beds that we were sleeping on. My brother was sleeping upstairs above my father. One night he fell down and he broke his arm. And that was really tragic because what could you do there with a broken arm? So we changed. He came to sleep with my mother and I went to sleep with with my father. It's difficult because the bed's wooden thing, it was very narrow. Well, those are the beds. And everybody had a shelf. That's where my mother put once a week we got some food. And I kept stealing because I just couldn't stand I was hungry, well, like everybody else.
And always the barbed wire in front.
Always, because this is through what we saw everything, and this is through what the memory sees everything. This was the synagogue. He wanted to have memories, and not only for himself. My father knew very well that it was very important for people. Then the originals, you have it in color.
Do you have the originals in here?
I
Full of
have
them to see those?
3 of the originals. The size difference, that's
Wow.
all. Not much more. He couldn't do anything bigger, but he had no tools. He was amazing. He had hands. I used to watch him since I was very small, very little girl. I had to be quiet, and that was difficult for a little girl. But I was watching him for hours, his hands. And later on, when I started doing my drawings, I saw my hands that are very much like his. It's not a compliment for a woman, but that's the fact. And the shape. And I can't forget his fingers. When he was drawing, it was so exact. I don't know how he did it without tools. He wanted really the world to know what was there. He wanted to. He expressed it on his originals, but he then printed it, and then of course it interested everybody. These drawings are beautiful and clean and simple, and it says everything. His simple art expresses very, very strong and very deep feelings, fears and angers and hopes. It is my memories, and I might have forgotten and ignored them. And this kind of memories, I think it's not so good to erase, because they remain there. And having them in such an artistic and simplistic way instead of a dramatic memory, for me it's very important, because something like that, it is so simple, but when I look at it, I have it in my stomach, because it's a place, it's a somewhere, it's a certain temperature, it's certain sounds, it's awful. And the whole thing, we got out of it. Kasztner took us out of it.